It started like any normal day. Lauren Miller, a young mother and a respected executive behind some of Bravo's biggest reality shows, like Real Housewives of New York City and Salt Lake City, was preparing for a moment she had waited for so long: the birth of her second child. She was already a mother to a beautiful 3-year-old daughter, Emma, and now she and her husband, Kevin, were about to welcome a baby boy. Everything seemed perfect. She had a loving family, a successful career, and a future that looked full of joy. But you won't believe how quickly everything changed. On June 9th, just moments after giving birth to her son, Jackson, Lauren died suddenly. The news hit like a storm. One minute she was smiling and holding her newborn, and the next she was gone. Her family, friends, and fans were left in shock. Let me tell you, nobody saw it coming. She wasn't just another face in the crowd. She was the heart behind the scenes of some of the most popular reality shows. Someone who made others shine while staying quietly strong in the background. But here's the shocking part. On what was supposed to be the happiest day of her life, destiny took an unexpected turn. Lauren's death was announced by Shed Media, the production company she worked with. They posted a heart-wrenching tribute, calling her a beloved colleague and a devoted mother. Photos of Lauren with her daughter, her husband, and even pictures from behind the scenes of her work started to flood social media. People couldn't believe it. She had been full of life, smiling in every photo, excited about her growing family. Everyone kept asking, how could this happen? But this is where it gets interesting. Just 3 days after Lauren's sudden death, her close friend and colleague Sherry Pender shared an update that added another twist. While the world was mourning Lauren, her newborn son Jackson was still in the NICU. Everyone was worried, would the baby survive after such a traumatic birth? And then, out of nowhere came some hope. Sherry revealed that Jackson had made a fast recovery. He was eating well, sleeping like a champ, and had finally come home to be with his dad and big sister. It felt like a small miracle in the middle of a heartbreaking tragedy. Still, the pain didn't go away. Kevin, now a single father, shared his own emotional words. He said Lauren was the love of his life and that he would never stop remembering her. His message was simple but powerful. He asked for prayers and thanked everyone for their kind words. People everywhere were touched but also confused. What had gone so wrong during the birth? She had gone to the hospital to bring life into the world, and instead her own life ended in seconds. What makes the story different is how sudden and mysterious it all was. There was no long illness, no warnings. Lauren had been healthy, happy, and excited for her future. That's the craziest part, how a day that was meant for celebration turned into a nightmare no one could wake up from. And yet, as more people began sharing stories about Lauren, how kind she was, how passionate she was about motherhood, the sadness grew deeper. Everyone knew that something didn't feel right. While friends and fans continued to share their memories of Lauren, a quiet storm was already brewing online. People started asking, how does a healthy woman with access to top medical care suddenly die after childbirth? The official statements didn't reveal much. There was no clear cause, no warning signs explained. That silence, that uncomfortable silence, left room for doubt, and soon the internet was full of theories. Some claimed it could have been a rare complication. Others whispered about possible medical negligence. But here's the craziest part. This wasn't just about Lauren anymore. Her story triggered a deeper conversation about something many people didn't want to talk about: maternal death, especially in well-resourced countries like the United States. Let me tell you, this is how a tragedy becomes a controversy. Statistically, the U.S. has one of the highest maternal mortality rates among developed nations. And yet, Lauren's case felt especially shocking. She wasn't some anonymous statistic. She was successful, supported, and surely under good medical supervision. So then, what went wrong? That's the question that started to echo across social media. Sherry Pender, who had shared updates on the baby, didn't speak about what happened in the delivery room. Neither did the family. And maybe they didn't want to. Maybe the grief was just too big. But here's the shocking part. Some fans began digging, questioning the hospital protocols, and even tagging the Bravo network, demanding answers. People weren't just heartbroken anymore, they were angry. Some even started to ask whether production companies like Bravo, who often put pressure on women in the public eye, contributed in any way to Lauren's mental or physical stress during pregnancy. It sounded wild, but in times of silence, people fill the gaps with theories. And then came another twist. An old interview of Lauren surfaced. In it, she talked about how hard it was to balance motherhood with the pressure of producing such high-profile shows. She had laughed it off then, saying how much she loved her job, but now, after her death, those words felt heavier. They hinted at stress, long hours, maybe even fatigue. Was she overworked? Was she hiding something? This is where it gets interesting, because suddenly people weren't just mourning Lauren, they were questioning the system around her. And yet, as these questions spread, something else became painfully clear. Lauren's husband, Kevin, had gone completely silent after his first post. He stopped sharing updates, and some close sources said he had been emotionally crushed and was avoiding public attention. And who could blame him? One moment, he was a husband preparing to welcome his son. The next, he was a widower trying to hold his broken family together. People started flooding his old Instagram posts with comments, not just of support, but of questions. Did he know what really happened in that hospital room? Was there more to this story than anyone was admitting? Destiny took an unexpected turn that day, not just for Lauren, but for everyone around her. Her story was no longer just a personal loss. It had become a public mystery. A beautiful woman with a loving family, a stable life, and a promising future vanished without a full explanation. The more people talked, the more it became obvious. This wasn't just a heartbreaking moment, it was a warning. A reminder that sometimes, even in a world full of cameras, success, and comfort, the darkest tragedies still slip through unseen. While Lauren's close friends tried to keep things private, more unofficial details started to trickle out. A few anonymous sources claimed that Lauren had been rushed into an emergency procedure shortly after delivery. Some whispered it was due to sudden internal bleeding. Others mentioned the possibility of an amniotic fluid embolism, a rare, often fatal complication. But again, nothing was confirmed. And that silence, it was getting louder. The hospital didn't release a statement. No detailed medical report came forward, and even Bravo remained quiet beyond their tribute post. That's when people really started to dig. And this is where it gets interesting. You won't believe how many women, after hearing Lauren's story, began coming forward with their own near-death experiences during childbirth. Social media flooded with posts from mothers, some celebrities, some everyday women, talking about how they almost died giving birth in hospitals, just like Lauren. Some said doctors ignored their pain. Others said nurses missed important signs. Suddenly, Lauren's death wasn't just one woman's tragedy. It became a symbol of something much bigger and far more terrifying. And here's the craziest part. Despite being well known in her industry, Lauren's story was barely covered by major media outlets at first. People began asking, why isn't this all over the news? Was it being buried, downplayed? And if so, by who? Was it to protect the hospital? Was it to avoid lawsuits? Or was it simply because the truth was too hard to explain? Then, attention shifted to the GoFundMe page created for Kevin and the kids. It had raised thousands of dollars in just a few days, and the messages left by donors painted a picture of a woman who had touched more lives than anyone realized. One comment read, "Lauren was a light. She helped me through the darkest period of my life and never asked for anything in return." Another wrote, "She deserved so much more than this." These weren't just fans. They were people who knew her personally, people who had seen her kindness, her strength, and her love for being a mother. And that made it even harder to accept what had happened. How could someone so full of life be gone in a moment? But here's the shocking part. Someone who had worked with Lauren closely on set claimed in a private message, later shared anonymously, that Lauren had once mentioned being scared about her second delivery. She said her first birth had complications, and this time, she felt something wasn't right in the final weeks. She brushed it off, maybe even kept it hidden from family, not wanting to worry anyone. But if that's true, then why didn't anyone listen? That's the question people couldn't stop asking. Was this avoidable? Could her life have been saved if someone took her fears seriously? Or was it all just a terrible, unstoppable twist of fate? Let me tell you, this wasn't just a painful story anymore. It was starting to look like a chain of missed chances, like a silent alarm that nobody heard in time. Kevin, now caring for Emma and baby Jackson alone, hadn't spoken again publicly. But sources close to him said he was shattered beyond words. Some even said he had been meeting with legal experts, though nothing official had been filed yet. And if that turns out to be true, this story might not be over at all. As weeks passed, the online buzz around Lauren's death only grew louder. A few quiet voices within the TV production world started speaking anonymously to podcasts and news blogs. One insider claimed that Lauren had been working almost until her due date. Not officially required, but out of personal pressure, she wanted everything in place before going on maternity leave. She wanted the next season to be perfect. And though she never showed it publicly, she was exhausted. That changes everything, people thought. Because if she was overworking herself, pushing past physical limits in her final days, then who, if anyone, was protecting her? But here's where destiny took an unexpected turn once again. Rumors began to circulate that Lauren had raised concerns during her prenatal checkups. According to someone claiming to be connected to her care team, Lauren had mentioned feeling off in her final appointments, tightness in her chest, extreme fatigue, and sudden swelling. These are not just pregnancy complaints. In some cases, they can be warning signs for deadly conditions like preeclampsia or heart complications. So now the question became even more painful. Were her symptoms ignored? Let me tell you, this is how systems fail. Not always through dramatic mistakes, but through small things overlooked, brushed aside, left for later. And if any of this was true, it meant that Lauren's death could have been more than just a sad accident. It could have been a failure of responsibility. This is where it gets interesting because legal experts began commenting publicly. Some said if Lauren's concerns were documented and no action was taken, Kevin might have grounds for a wrongful death lawsuit. Still, no lawsuit was officially announced. But the possibility alone made the public lean in even closer. Now, it wasn't just about sympathy, it was about justice. Meanwhile, Emma, just 3 years old, was now asking questions. According to a family friend's emotional Facebook post, the little girl would often look at the door, waiting for her mom to walk back in. And Jackson, the baby Lauren never got to raise, would grow up knowing his mother only through stories, pictures, and videos. That image broke millions of hearts. This wasn't a storyline from one of Lauren's reality shows. This was real. It was raw. And it had no perfect ending. But the most heartbreaking moment came when Kevin finally posted again, weeks after Lauren's death. It was a simple photo, him, Emma, and baby Jackson sitting together on a blanket in their backyard. No big captions, just one sentence, "We're trying." That post went viral. Thousands of comments poured in, some offering prayers, others still demanding answers, but all of them had one thing in common: grief. Because at the end of it all, no twist or theory could undo what had happened. A mother died on the day she gave life. A husband was left with a lifetime of silence where laughter used to be. 2 children were left without the warmth of the one person who loved them more than anything. What makes this story different? It's not just the fame, not just the suddenness. It's the silence, the mystery, the questions that were never answered. It's the feeling that something precious slipped through the cracks of a system that should have caught it. And that maybe if more people start listening, really listening, Lauren's story could be more than a tragedy. It could be a turning point. So remember her, not just for the heartbreak she left behind, but for the warning her story carries. Because sometimes the loudest alarm is the one that rings only after it's too late. And now the world must decide whether to ignore it or finally wake up.